शलाकया येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमा ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे Hare Krishna. So welcome all the devotees. So we are into this 13th chapter, and so far we have covered 20 verses. I'm just trying to share the screen. Please give me a minute. Please bear with me one moment. I'm just trying to display the screen. There seems to be some problem here. Today I have prepared the PPT, but it seems that I'm not able to share. I don't know what to do. Anyways, so we discussed from beginning of the 20th verse we started. So we all know that we are in this now third section. We discussed in the beginning that text 1 to 7, the Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Then from 8 to 12, we discussed the process of knowledge, Jnana. Then from 13 to 19, we discussed the object of knowledge, that is Jnayam. And 20 to 26 is a section wherein we are discussing Prakriti, Purusha and their union. So far we have discussed the 20 and 21st verse. So we'll just briefly go through it. Prakriti and Purusha, we discussed in 20th verse that Prakriti and Purusha are anadi. That means they are eternal. That was mentioned in the verse 20. Prakriti Purusham Chaiva Vidhi Anadi Ubhav Api. That both of them, Prakriti and Purusha, are eternal. And Prakriti manifests to the interaction of modes. Vikaramsha Gunamsha Vidhi Prakriti Sambhava. How are we able to see these varieties in this world is because of the Prakriti being in combination with different modes of material nature. So we see that actually the material things in this world are very temporary. One may question, how is Prakriti eternal? So the point is that material things are temporary, whatever things we have, but the matter itself, which is the energy of the Lord, is not temporary. It is eternal. Even in the physics, we have this law of conservation of energy, that the energy gets converted into another form. It doesn't gets depleted. So material energy is eternal, whereas the forms which are formed out of those material elements are temporary. So just like we see that building, any building, it may have the components of earth, water, fire, air, ether. So the components will remain, but building will remain for a certain number of years. So like that. So all these things we discuss that how this Prakriti is giving actually just the temporary forms in front of us and not the real thing. And the living entity, the Purusha, who is in the enjoyer mentality, simply gets bewildered by these changes in the forms. So like that we saw. So one example we can think about in this is about the TV screen. So on the TV screen, we see various colors. They are like changes in the colors. So in essence, actually they are nothing but RGB, the combination of RGB, three colors. But the combination is such that a person gets attracted to the form of that particular formation of color. So there may be some beautiful flower which may attract a person in mode of goodness, or there may be some beautiful lady which may be attracted to a passionate person, or some person in mode of ignorance may get attracted to the form of some drugs or something like that. So like that. So these all things was explained in verse number 20. Yes. So then next we see in verse number 21 we saw Karya Karana Kartitve Hetu Prakriti Ruchyate Purusha Sukha Dukkhanam Bhoktrutve Hetu Ruchyate. That nature is said to be the cause of all material cause and effects. When we talk about nature, or when we talk about Prakriti, so what is the Prakriti as far as cause and effects are concerned? Just like we discuss about these three colors, the three colors are nothing but the ingredients, and what comes as output of these three colors is something, the effect of that. So the cause and the effect. Whenever we discuss about cause and effect, who is the cause, who is the original cause of the cause and effects? That is Prakriti. And when we talk about enjoyment, so you remember that verse, Purusha Prakriti Stoi. So Purusha is here in this particular verse is saying that when it talks Sukha Dukkhanam, when it is talk about enjoyment or distress, then Purusha is the cause. So we'll discuss about this again in detail. If we see again the example of a TV screen or a movie going on a TV screen. So because it is having the desire to watch a particular type of movie or watch some TV serial. So that's why he's watching that, and while watching that, he's getting some kind of happiness and distress. So because that desire initially is there. So now, as far as enjoyment is concerned, who is the cause? Purusha is the cause. The living entity is the cause. He is having that desire, so he is watching the movie, and while he is watching the movie, then he is getting happiness or distress out of that movie. Whatever the scenes are there in the movie, based on that, he gets happiness or distress. Now we can see if there are two people. Two people are there, and on a big TV screen, a movie is going on. One of the person, he is there in front of the TV, but he's not watching the TV. He is simply doing something else, and other person is watching the movie. So one who is watching the movie, he will feel that pleasure and pain based on the what is going on the TV screen. And the other person who is not watching the screen, there will be no effect on him based on the changes in the TV screen, isn't it? So similarly, the TV screen, even if there is no person sitting on the seat, the TV screen will continue to show the movie fully. So that means the cause and effect will happen based on the cause of Prakriti. The colors will mix, it will give some effects, some forms that will keep on happening. So that's how we see that Prakriti is the cause when we talk about the cause and effect. But when we talk about the enjoyment, then Purusha is considered to be the cause. Is this particular point clear to everyone?
Yes, Prabhuji, clear.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Then we'll go ahead. So from this, what is the inference for us in our life? That seasonal changes will be there in the Prakriti. Based on the cause and effect of the Prakriti, there will be seasonal changes. But how much the Purusha is seeing that and how much he is getting affected by that is based on his enjoyment. So like that. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature, because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. So this is what we are talking about. Once the person enters the movie theater, then whatever is going on in the theater, most of the time it happens that the living entity is sitting and he experiences, and sometimes and distress, sometimes horror, and all kind of these things. Obviously, he has the choice to go out, but he gets stuck to it. So, similarly, Srila Prabhupada here is saying, once the person is in a particular kind of body, then he is under the control of nature, and he cannot change it. He has no power to change it. Yes. Now we will go to next verse. Please repeat after me. Verse number 22. Purusha prakrutistho hi.
Purusha prakrutistho hi.
Te prakriti jan gunan.
Jan gunan.
Karanam gunasangosya.
Karanam gunasangosya.
Sadasat yoni janmasu. Yes, somebody can read the translation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with the material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species.
Yes.
Should I continue, Prabhuji?
No, just a minute. I'll just leave the meeting and join back so that now I can share the screen.
Sure.
You can all see the screen.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Great. Finally, the success has come. Yeah. So this is this thing. So here there are various very important points mentioned in this particular verse. So first here we can see the bhunte. So first of all, we have to understand this is a very important verse in this particular, not only this particular chapter, but the whole section from 13 to 18. Because this is called by our acharyas the seed verse for the whole Jnana section. So here we see that bhunte is the one word. Previously, what was the word? Bhoktutve. So where remember where it had come? Bhoktutve. Yes, let's wait. In the beginning, where we discussed about the Purusha.
Verse number 21.
Yes, correct. Purusha Sukadukkanam Bhoktutve Heturuchyate. That's right. So from there we see that here the word Bhoktutve has come. And here the word is Bhunte. So it is similar. Bhoktutve is further explained. Then we see that soul wants to enjoy. Prakriti Jan Gunan. Then he has to enjoy through what? Prakriti, which is made up of modes of nature. So here again, an example can be given that the palette of color is not very attractive. There are colors separately kept. So nobody generally gets simply attracted by the colors. But when they are put together and some wonderful form is formed out of that colors, then that something is very attractive. It's like modes of nature. Modes of nature, Sattva, Raja and Tama, they are themselves not going to create any problem. But when they mix and something out of that is formed, that is what is making the soul enjoy or suffer. So again, same thing. Objects made up of Mahabhutani. Somebody may get attracted to the rising sun who is in mode of goodness, who is in passion, he may get attracted to the opposite sex, or somebody who is in ignorance may get attracted to drugs or alcohol kind of things. So because of the association of these three modes, what happens is Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. Purusha Prakriti Soyi Bhunte Prakriti Jan Gunam Karanam Guna Sangosya. Because of being associated with the guna, that is the three modes. What happens? Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. He has to undergo good and bad. He has to undergo the good species and bad species. So desire to enjoy will not only lead to happiness or distress. So that we discussed in the previous verse, 21st, that Purusha Sukha Dukkhanam, happiness and distress. But desire to enjoy will not only end in happiness and distress in this life, but will also lead to the transmigration to other species. And what kind of species? Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. It may be either good or it may be not good. So we can think of again a movie we are discussing, so a horror movie. As per living entity chooses to watch a horror movie. So then he watches a horror movie and he so-called enjoyment he gets in that, and he feels, oh, this is nice, some thrilling experiences there. So then he goes on watching another horror movie. In this way, his inclination to watch that kind of movies increases, and then finally he ends up into all that zone only. So same thing, living entity happens, that he is he's inclined towards a particular type of enjoyment, and because of that particular type of either enjoyment or kind of activity, he gets that type of body. So we many times talk about this in laws of nature, that if somebody is too much wanting to eat meat or some good not so good items, then he gets a body of tiger or a hog, all that stuff we already know. So based on these only, he gets the sad asad yoni jamasu. So then purport, Srila Prabhupada says that as long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. So this is the point. False manifestation. What is that false manifestation? The presentation of Prakriti from its cause to its effects. Whatever the ingredients of Prakriti are, they are mixed in such a way that some effect comes about, and that effect, which is a false manifestation, living gets captivated by that, and then he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another body. And another point in the purport, somewhere in the down, the living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature, and gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. So Srila Prabhupada is very merciful that he is giving the solution to such a living entity who is falsely attracted to the effects of material nature, and thereby continuing his transmigration from one body to another body. And the solution is if he submits himself to the hearing process. So hearing from the authorities. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, is it the karma that decides his next body, or is it the desire that decides the next body?
Yeah. So actually, based on the desire, one acts, and based on that activity, again he gets another further bodies. So based on previous action, we have got this particular body today. And what are the action based on? Based on the desires. So desires lead to action, and action leads to next body. Is it okay?
So I mean, what I heard is there could be a lot of desires for that living entity. So, but depending on his past life, I mean, maybe in the down the line, in one of the body, he may get it. He may, he get that body, right? I mean, like how this happens. Like, if he desires for, he want to eat a lot of meat, and then he want to sleep for more hours, or he want to sleep, or like that. He may go and take a birth as a tiger, and sometimes he may take a birth as a he want to get hibernated or something like. So is it all decided by God, or is it because the living entity decides who actually decides what bodies the living entity will get?
Answer will come in the next verse. If you can just patiently wait. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji.
There is the answer is there. So we'll just complete this and then go ahead.
Prabhuji, just a question on Satyadev's question.
Yeah.
So it is not just the desire. So what you're saying is also that if it does not result into an action, then like only the desire will not lead to the next body, right? So this is what is the desire. So it has to result into an action, then only it will lead to that kind of a body. Is it?
In general, it actually happens into the action also.
Yeah, I understand.
May not be now, maybe in further lives.
Okay.
Similarly, as we are told that, that we have, if we get a desire to speak harshly or hurt somebody, so if we are able to curb that desire, then it doesn't result into the action. But if we don't curb that desire, then it comes into the action. So it is like that. So if the desires are not checked well in time, they come into the action.
That is why I asked this question, that there might be desires, but if somebody is able to curb those desires, right, and not result into action, so then they can
That
also.
happens only when somebody gets the knowledge.
Correct. Yeah.
In general, who is not having any knowledge, so he gets carried away with the modes only. And then that's why here it is mentioned that based on that, then because of the association with those modes, then he gets another body which may be Sat Asat. It may be a body of a demigod, or it may be a body of a lower species. That is a general procedure which happens. That's why this knowledge is here spoken by Krishna to awaken us ki aisa ho raha hai, it's going to happen like that. You awaken and don't allow it to become like that. That is what it is. So that is what it means, the changing the desire. So desires cannot be annihilated at all. But now earlier the desires were for some other activity of sense gratification. Now you have to change it and bring it to this process of Krishna consciousness. Okay. Yeah. So now here we see that every tree in the world, we see that there is a seed. So that's why this verse is also called as seed verse. Karanam Gunasanga. So material tree has also grown from what? The desire to enjoy of living entity. Because there is a desire in living entity to enjoy separately from Krishna, that is why this material tree has grown. Now the 13th chapter talks about this seed, and 14th chapter talks about what waters that seed, and that is the modes. So modes of material nature are watering the seed of desire of enjoyment. And then 15th chapter explains that tree itself, which has its root upward and branches down. Adascha Moolam Ananta Shakha. All that thing is explained in the 15th chapter. And there it is given what is the solution to cut down that tree is Asanga Shastrena Dridena Chitwa. By the weapon of detachment. One is to cut this. Yes. Hare Krishna.
I think it was accidentally somebody was unmuting Prabhu. I muted them.
Okay. Fine. So then 16th chapter explains the extremes of that tree. What is the uppermost portion of the tree and what is the lowermost portion of the tree? That is the demoniac and the divine natures. And then the 17th chapter explains the intermediate parts of the tree. What is that intermediate parts? That Arjuna is asking that, okay, I understood that there are people who are demoniac, who are fully atheist, and I also understood that there are people who are divine, who are faithful. But then what about those people who are faithful but not having full faith on scriptures, but on something else, but they are faithful? So then Krishna explains about them in 17th chapter. And 18th chapter comes about the summary of all this discussion. So this is how we can see that this verse is a seed verse of the entire section. Okay. Yeah. So now we'll go to the next verse. Verse 23. Upadrishtanumanta cha
Upadrishtanumanta
Karta Bhokta Maheshwara
Karta Bhokta Maheshwara
Paramatmeti Chapyukto
Paramatmeti
Chaprapto
Dehesmin Purusha Para.
Dehesmin Purusha Para.
Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So this is a very, very wonderful verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is talking about super soul. Now, do you know any other verse wherein super soul is talked about? So in 15th chapter, 15th verse is there. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto matta smritirjnanam apohanam cha. Very famous verse. So there also Krishna is saying that Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto, that I am seated within the heart of all living entities. Also in 18th chapter, Krishna says, Ishvara sarva bhutana hriddeshe arjuna tishtati. There Krishna is telling that Ishvara is situated in the heart of all living entities. But in this particular verse, Krishna is defining the word Paramatma in its fullest extent. So it is a very, very important verse. So now let's see one word, what are there mentioned. So first thing is mentioning is Upadrishta. Upadrishta is overseer. So we saw that in the Kshetra, there is Kshetradnya, that we saw. And we also saw that the Kshetradnya is not only the living entity, but there is another Kshetradnya who is now having the knowledge of all the Kshetras. And then we understood that Nyaya, that it is this Kshetra and Kshetradnya is to be known. That Kshetra is to be known, that the field of activity, that is a body, subtle and gross, and Kshetradnya is a super soul and the living entity, that has to be known. And then in Purusha also we saw that the Purusha, the living entity, who is actually a Prakriti, or we can say a Para Prakriti, is called as Purusha when he has the enjoying mentality. So there we saw that in the Purusha also, Krishna mentions that there is another Purusha, Purusha Paraha, who is transcendental to this so-called Purusha. So now here, Krishna is giving us the understanding that this Paraha Purusha, the transcendental Purusha, who is beyond all the so-called enjoying mentality Purusha, he is the Upadrashta. He is the overseer of all the activities of all the living entities in the material world. And then what does he do? When he oversees, now this is in regards to the question of Satyadeva Prabhu, that when the living entity is desiring, the Paramatma in the heart, he sees, he oversees, oh, this living entity has particular type of desire. But then what does he do? Does he fulfill the desire or not? So the next word is Anumanta, that is permitter. He permits, but when he sees that he has sufficient quota of pious activities performed to fulfill that desire. So just like we see in the story of Dhritarashtra, that in his previous life, he was cursed to get 100 sons and then killed. But then to get the 100 sons, he had to perform a lot of pious activities for many lifetimes. So like that, Upadrashta Anumanta. So Lord permits based on the qualification of that particular desire of the living entity. And he is also the maintainer, Bharta. And he is the real enjoyer, Bhokta. So here previously we saw Bhumte Prakriti Jan Guna in 22nd verse. That the Purusha is situated within the Prakriti and he is Bhumte. He is, but actual enjoyer of the Prakriti is nothing but the Paramatma, Bhokta. He is the real enjoyer, not the living entity. And then here it is mentioned that he is also Maheshwar, the Supreme Lord. And on the contrary, in the previous verse, we saw that the living entity is not the Supreme Lord because he has to undergo various species of life. He has to undergo various species of life, Sad, Asad, Yoni. And then he is called as Paramatma. Paramatma cha api uktaha, he is said. Dehesmin Purusha Paraha. He is situated within the body and he is a Para Purusha. And whereas in the previous verse it was mentioned that the so-called Purusha is Prakriti story, is caught up in the Prakriti. He is not liberated or he is not transcendental. He is transcendental in one sense, but he is right now caught up in the Prakriti. Whereas this Purusha, the Paramatma, is always transcendental, never gets caught up in the Prakriti. So all these qualities certainly do not apply to the Purusha which was talked in the last 3 verses. Whereas all these qualities apply to Paramatma, the super soul. So now let's see what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Yes, somebody can read this last.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhana Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
That's from both Prabhu.
Yeah, the Lord is.
Sure. The Lord is always eager to take him back to the spiritual energy. But due to his minute independence, the living entity is continually rejecting the association of spiritual light. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife in the conditioned nature.
Yes. So is the question answered which was asked previously? Satyadev Prabhu? One more devotee was there who had asked the question. I could not notice the name.
Sunil Prabhu.
Sunil
I
Prabhu.
asked the question as a follow-up question whether the desire and it has to result into action, then only the next body will be there, or it will be only on the desire.
Yeah. So just like we discussed that once the living entity desires, it is based on whatever he has acquired till now, pious or unpious activities. So Krishna or Paramatma will permit it, or he may postpone it, till the time the that kind of qualification is developed. So that is how it happens. Is that okay?
Yeah. So basis desire as well, like next body or how the Paramatma is sanctioning things, so that will also determine, right, whether in next lifetime or this lifetime or next to next or whatever.
Yes. So as we discussed that desire will lead to action sometime or the other, unless and until the person realizes it, especially in human form of life, not in any other form of life. Only in human form of life has the ability to realize and to correct. So unless that happens, the living entity continues this cycle of transmigration. Okay, so we'll go ahead. Text 24. Ya evam veti purusham
Yevam veti purusham
prakrutim cha gunai saha
prakritim cha gunai saha
sarvatha vartamanopi
sarvatha vartamanopi
abhuyo abhijayate.
nasa bhuyo abhijayate.
Translation.
Yeah, let me read, Prabhu.
Yes.
One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position.
So here we can see that if somebody asks this question, what we will get after knowing all these things, 6 things, so this is like summary verse that this will, if we understand this philosophy concerning the material nature, living entity, that is Prakriti, Purusha, and the modes of nature, is sure to attain liberation. So, nasa bhuyo avijayate. He doesn't have to come back in this material world, not take birth again, regardless of his present position. So, here the point is, as we just now discussed, that this will continue. The interaction of modes will continue. The living entities transmigration will continue unless and until he understands this philosophy. So when he understands this philosophy, now what does it means of understanding philosophy? It also means bringing it into the practice, not simply the understanding, but actually bringing it to practice. So when that happens, then only there is a chance for the living entity to come out of this cycle of transmigration and relocate himself back to his original position of going back home, back to Godhead. So this is what we can understand from this particular verse. So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, the purpose of knowledge, in the middle part of the purport, the purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctly that living entity has by chance fallen into this material existence. By his personal endeavor in association with authorities, saintly persons, and spiritual master, he has to understand his position and then revert to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness by understanding Bhagavad Gita as it is explained by the personality of Godhead. Yeah. So from this we can understand that just now what we had discussion, that unless and until person gets this knowledge or unless and until he understands, he will continue the transmigration based on his desires. He will keep getting different species of, he will getting birth in different species of life. And only when he gets from higher authorities this transcendental knowledge, is there a chance for him to go back home, back to God. Next verse. Dhyanenatmani pashyanti.
ज्ञानेनात्मनि
ज्ञानेनात्मनि
पश्यन्ति
पश्यन्ति
केचिदात्मानम् आत्मना.
चिदात्मनम् आत्मना
अन्ये सांख्येन योगेन.
अन्ये
साङ्ख्येन योगेन
कर्मयोगेन चापरे.
कर्मयोगेन
चापरे.
Translation.
Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires.
Yeah. So now previous verse Krishna has mentioned that one who knows this Purusha Prakriti and the interaction of modes, he will not have to take birth again. Now we saw in the purport that Srila Prabhupada is telling us directly that one has to take shelter of spiritual master. But before that, Krishna is giving some other ways of means to get this knowledge. And what is that? It is dhyanena atmani pashyanti. So in this word, we see the word atma is repeated thrice. One is atmani in the first line, and in the second line, there are two times atmanam and atmana. So in the first line, the word is atmani is self. Dhyanena atmani pashyanti. So one should meditate within oneself. And then what is the next verse? Kechid atmanam atmana. With the help of mind, one should meditate within oneself upon atmanam, that is the super soul. So one atmani is a self, the second word atma is a super soul, and third atma is a mind. So although explicitly the word mind is not mentioned in the translation, but we can understand that meditation happens only through the mind. So the some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation with the help of mind is in the bracket, like that. So this is nothing but what? Which was explained in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What is this called as? Dhyana Yoga. And Dhyana Yoga culminates in the last verse of Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter was Yoginam api sarvesham madgata antiratmana. That Krishna is saying the best yogi is one who has fixed his mind fully upon me. And then Krishna is mentioning here, Kechid Atma, then Anye Sankhena Yogena. Then there are others who can try to understand this Purusha and Prakriti by analysis of Sankhya means what? Analysis of 24 elements. So we saw that all those 24 elements in this chapter also. So after he does analysis, he says, there is no reality in this 24. Then he goes to the 25th element, that's the soul. And then finally, he may come to the understanding of the 26th element, that's the super soul. That's another method. And then the third method Krishna is mentioning is Karma Yoga Chapare. So Karma Yoga, through the help of Karma Yoga, one may try to understand. So Srila Prabhupada wonderfully explains this in brief, and then finally the last sentence is quite wonderful here. Srila Prabhupada is saying, there are others who cultivate the Hatha Yoga system and who try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities. Can you please all of you mute? There's some background noise coming. So what is Hatha Yoga? So Hatha Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, they are one and the same to some or lesser degree. But Hatha Yoga especially is focusing more on the external bodily exercises, which later on culminates into the Ashtanga Yoga, which is going inside deep, and finally it culminates into Dhyana Yoga, which is fully focusing on the super soul within one's own mind. So that is also why Srila Prabhupada is saying that that these are just childish activities. Because how does child says? Child says that I will do something which others cannot do. So this is something like Hatha Yoga people are. They are simply showing some gymnastics and trying to attract the people, and trying to say that we are doing something better than others. That's it. But the real yogi is one who goes beyond that and reaches the super soul or searches out the super soul within one's heart. So these are the various means Krishna is mentioning to what? For what? Knowing the knowledge about Purusha, Prakriti, and the entanglement of Purusha in the Prakriti by the modes of nature. Yes. So this is what. And in the next verse, Anyetvevam ajananta Shutvanyebhya upasate Tepi chati tarantyeva Mrutyum shruti parayana. Translation.
Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death.
Yes. So it's a very, very wonderful verse. Anyeto evam ajanantaha. So previously Krishna summarized that there are three ways by which one can know this Purusha, Prakriti and modes. And that is through Dhyana Yoga or Sankhya Yoga or Karma Yoga. But if there are some people, Anyetu evam ajanantaha, those who are ignorant about all these kinds of yogas, then what will happen to them? But if they are Shrutavanyebhya upasate, Tepi chate tarantyeva mrutyum shruti parayana. So there is a word in Bhagavatam, Narayana Parayana or Vasudeva Parayana. Means one who has devoted oneself to Narayana or Vasudeva. Or in Bhagavad Gita, we see in 16th chapter, there is a word Kama Krodha Parayana. One who is devoted oneself to the lust and anger. So similarly here the word is coming Shruti Parayana. that one who has dedicated himself to hearing. Now the word Shruti can also mean the Vedic scripture which deals with Karmakand. But Krishna is not talking about that Shruti scripture here. Why? Because already in the second chapter, Krishna has condemned to just sticking to Shruti scriptures. He has told that you have to go beyond this, Shruti viprati pannate yada sthasisi nischala samadha vachala buddhis tada yugam avapsisi. This is 2.53. So Krishna has already told Arjuna to go beyond. Then why he will now tell by the word Shruti that again you read the Shruti scriptures, or this is for those people who are reading Shruti or hearing Shruti scriptures? No, this is Shrutva Anyebhya Upasate. The word Anyebhya is also very much mentioned here. Anya refers to somebody else. So they are hearing from somebody else. And as a result of that hearing, what is the result of that hearing? Upasate. They are beginning to worship me. Tepi Chatya Tarantyeva. So they will also cross over the material nature. So Daivi Esha Gunamai, Mama Maya Duratya, Mam Eva Pratyante, Mayam Etan Tarantite. There also we see this word, Taranti, that one who is bound by this Gunamai, Daivi Maya, he can, if he takes full surrender at my lotus feet, then he can cross over. So similarly here Krishna is mentioning Shrutva Anyebhya Upasate. One who hears from others, one who loves to hear from others, and as a result of that, he starts worshipping me. They also are very much qualified to cross over and come to me, cross over the path of birth and death. So the point here is that even one is Ajanantaha, although there may be some common man, a common man may be there, but he also can cross over. Just a minute, I got a very important call. Please. Yes, sorry. So even if somebody is Ajanantaha, then also if he is faithful to the hearing from authoritative person, then he can cross over the material nature. So very, very encouraging verse we can see from Krishna. So as I said that previously Srila Prabhupada already gave this conclusion in the verse number 24, purport to verse number 24. So let's see what Srila Prabhupada says here also. Can somebody read this part of the purport?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
As for the common man, if he's a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress. Especially according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you. One more.
It is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age, no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning.
So we can see Srila Prabhupada is so much stressing on this aspect of hearing from authoritative sources. And as Prabhupada is mentioning here, that the beginning process is hearing, and as he hears from authoritative sources, and as he hears the transcendental vibration of chanting of holy name, then he comes to the level of understanding things gradually, and comes to the position of worshipping the Supreme Lord. So therefore, there is no other thing to be done in this day and age, but to simply surrender ourselves to the process of hearing. Yes. So now this culminates the the section of Purusha, Prakriti, and how it gets bind together. And then now the last section from verse number 27 to 35 is wherein it is mentioned Jnana Chakshu, seeing through the eyes of scriptures. So let us go to verse number 27. So any questions so far on this particular section?
We referred one verse in I think in chapter 2, where you said that Krishna was condemning about the Shruti Shastra. Which verse was it? That
2.53.
What was that about? Because I can't, like, personally I don't recall.
I was saying that there Krishna has talked about actually 2.52 also. I think there is a mention Yadate Moha Kalilam. Just a minute. Yes. Yadate Moha Kalilam Buddhir Vyatitarishati Tada Gantasi Nirvedam Shotabhyasya Sutasya Cha. There also Krishna is telling that you have to pass your intelligence out of the dense forest of delusion. So this process of karma kand is nothing but what that if there is some sinful activity performed, then you do something to get out of that. All these things is mentioned. So Krishna is telling Arjuna in the beginning only that you don't get caught up by this flowery language of Shruti. If you do this, then you will go to heaven and you will get this kind of enjoyment and all these things. So this kind of flowery language which is there in the Vedas, don't get allured by that. So that is all talked about there. So that's why we here when Krishna is using the word Shruti, Shrutva Anyebhya, so that does not mean the Shruti scripture wherein all the flowery language is mentioned. If that was the case, then Krishna would not have spoken about it in this way in the second chapter. Is that okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, so we'll go to the next section.
Prabhuji, is Shruti only what is mentioned in Karma Kanda? Whatever Krishna says is Shruti, right? Even Bhagavad Gita is a part of Shruti and Smriti.
Yeah, so when we talk about this, then we should know that in Vedas there are various sections. So based on that, this one particular section is primarily called as Shruti in the technical world.
Which section?
This Karma Kand section.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not everything. So when somebody is referring to Shruti, means actually that section of the Karma Kanda.
That is what we can say in the those who are always dealing with the scriptural things and Vedic things, in that circle we can say like that.
Okay.
But in general, as you mentioned, yes, Shruti also is that thing which is spoken by Krishna. So in broad sense, that word Shruti also refers to that. So
Okay.
Sanskrit is actually like that, that every word has a different meaning based on the based on the usage where it has been done. Just like we saw the Atma word just now, which has got three meanings. In one verse only, it had got three meanings.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So text 27. Yavat sanjayate kinchit.
Yavat sanjayate kinchit.
Sattvam sthavara jangamam.
Sattvam sthavara jangamam.
Kshetra kshetrajna sanyogat.
Kshetra kshetrajna samyogat.
Tadviddhi bharatarshabha.
Tadviddhi bharatarshabha.
Translation.
O chief of the Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. Hare Krishna.
So now Krishna is going to give us a final explanation or an integrated overview of how all these things are going to fit together or fit in with each other. So tad vidhi, here Krishna is saying to Bharatarshava, oh Arjun, tad vidhi, you must know. What you must know? Yavat sanjayate sattvam sthavar jangamam. So yavat sanjayate means whatever is coming into being. What is that? Sattvam sthavar jangamam. Whatever coming into the being, whether it is moving or non-moving. Kshetra, kshetrajna sanyogat. It is nothing but the combination of kshetra and kshetrajna. So we can see from this that Krishna is reducing the varieties of this world to the fundamentals. So there are so many varieties in the world, so many varieties of bodies, 8 species of humans. Within humans also there are so many different varieties. So all these varieties, Krishna is trying to reduce it to the fundamentals, that you have to understand, O Arjuna, that they are coming into the being. All these moving and non-moving is nothing but the kshetra kshetrajna sanyoga, the combination of kshetra and kshetrajna. So this is what Krishna is explaining here in this verse. And just like we see the example that a painting is nothing but the combination of kshetra and kshetrajna. So the colors are there, everything is there, but then the person comes and he puts that in such a sequence that a wonderful painting comes out. So the kshetrajna or the knower of the field, that is the soul, he is playing with the material nature, or he is trying to lord it over material nature, as Srila Prabhupada many times says, and he is trying to figure it out. But actually, he is getting enamored by that and he is controlled by that. Instead of he is controlling, he is getting controlled by that Prakriti. So there, this particular section from 10% onwards is termed as Jnana Chakshu. Why? Because with the help of the scriptures, we can see things instead of just seeing the superficiality varieties of this world. We can see things more deeply, in a more serious way, and in a more loving way. Why loving way? Because when we come to the stage of loving Krishna, then we can see everything in that connection of Krishna. So that's why it can even lead to that stage. So the Dhyana Chakshu, or the eyes of the scriptures, offers us this initial level of detachment. So now the question may arise that what is the result of seeing things as a combination of matter and spirit? So here Krishna is telling in essence that you have to see everything as a combination of matter and spirit. So what is the result of seeing these things like that? That's mentioned in the next verse. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu
Samam sarveshu bhuteshu
tishtantam parameshwaram
tishtantam
Parameshwaram
vinashyat swavinishyantam
vinasyantam
yapashyati sapashyati.
yapashyati sapashyati.
One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and body is ever destroyed, actually sees.
So he gets this equal vision. When he gets the equal vision, when he sees that everything in this world is a combination of matter and spirit, then what happens? Samam sarveshu bhuteshu. Then he sees things on an equal platform. So here the word Parameshwaram has come. So generally when we hear the word Parameshwar, we immediately apply it to the Supreme Lord. But here the word Parameshwaram is applied to living entity. Obviously Parameshwar also means Supreme Lord, but in this context. So again, coming back to the answer of Shruti, here also we are saying that the word Parameshwaram is applied to Jivatma. Why? Because in one sense he is a low, is a small level of Ishvara, and he is Parama means what? He is transcendental to this Prakriti. He is not the part of this manifestation of Prakriti. So like that. So so that is what we can see, that this verse is very, very important as a part of our sadhaka life, because it helps us to acquire the knowledge of going beyond the superficiality. There are so many biased perceptions and so many misconceptions within our mind because of the superficiality, because of seeing things superficially. On a gross level, we can see that one may think that I am Indian, and that's why one may have this misconception or this perception that all the people who are Pakistani are terrorists, or all Muslims are terrorists. So by this we can understand this is simply a bodily conception, and this is all superficial conception. So tomorrow he may get birth in Pakistan because of so much being absorbed in thoughts of being Pakistani. Then that time he will think the other way around, that all Indians are kafirs, so I must kill all the Indians, in this way. So basically these superficial perceptions only creates dissensions in the society, and that is what we see in this world today. But why only see at the world? Even within our own world of spiritual life, we can see that if we don't maintain this understanding, higher understanding, then we may also get caught up into the superficiality, that I am a disciple of so and so guru, or I am the follower of this particular group in this particular temple, so our group is better, others group is not better. So on all these things, then it is nothing but a very superficial understanding of whole thing, So one should learn to cross over this superficiality by acquiring this knowledge. So when this kind of superficiality is there, then it only creates diversion. So like that. Yeah. So this is what we see, that the 27th verse is explained that how everything is because of the combination of matter and spirit. And in this verse, we see that one should see beyond matter and have the equal vision. Okay. Yes. So now let's go to the next verse. Yeah, before that, we'll read this purport of Srila Prabhupada, wherein he's talking about Parmeshwara. Yes, somebody can read it.
Hi Krishna Prabhuji, I'm reading. The Sanskrit word Parmeshwara is sometimes translated as the individual soul, because the soul is the master of the body, and after the destruction of the body, he transfers to another form. In that way, he is master. But there are others who interpret this Parmeshwara to be the super soul. In either case, both the super soul and the individual soul continue. They're not destroyed. One who can see in this way can actually see what is happening.
Ya pashyati sapashyati. Yes, 29 verse. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra.
Samam pashyan hi sarvatra.
Samavasthitam Eshwaram.
Samavasthitam Eshwaram.
Nahina satyatmanatmanam.
Nahinasyaatmanatmanam.
Tato yati param gatim.
Tato yati param gatim.
Translation.
One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination.
So what is the result of attaining that equal vision is that mind does not degrade the self, and thereby helps him to go up. So generally we see that by this material vision or having a superficial vision of not understanding the difference between body and spirit, one is caught up in the 6 kinds of anarthas, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, and that's how it degrades the position of the soul. So persons who are always seeing through material vision, when they see some wealthy person, they feel, oh, he has so much money, how can I get it? Let me find means to have it. Or somebody may look at the opposite sex and get attracted and say, oh, let me enjoy with this person. So in this way, all these anarthas are the cause because of the material vision. So that's why here Krishna is saying that samavisthitam ishwaram, very, very important verse, that when one sees equally, not just on material level, but on the level of spirit, when he can see the difference between the matter and spirit, then he sees on equal level, equal vision. And then the result of seeing that is samavasthitam ishwaram. He sees that in everyone's heart, the presence of the super soul, who is Upadashta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara, all that is seen. So that is why this word samavasthitam ishwaram is there. Like we see when Shringi, he cursed Parikshit Maharaj. So what Parikshit Maharaj saw it as just interaction of modes, and he just acknowledged it and accepted the curse. So Shringi acted on his level of anger. So, but Parikshit Maharaj did not retaliate it in that way. So this is the lesson, because Parikshit Maharaj was on that position where he was saying samavasthitam ishwaram. He was seeing the presence of super soul in the heart of Shringi, and he saw that this has been brought about by the special mercy of the Lord, and Lord has some plan through this. That is what Parikshit Maharaj could see, and that's why there was no need for him to retaliate in any way. So this is how we can see how the working of Yoga Maya and Mahamaya is. So Shringi might have acted on the action of Mahamaya, but it was not necessary that Parikshit Maharaj also should act on Mahamaya. Rather, he chose to act on Yoga Maya, on the basis of Yoga Maya, and he responded to the situation accordingly. We see Srila Prabhupada talking this in the section of where Duryodhana expels Vidura out of his kingdom and tells him that only thing what you can carry with yourself is your prana, life airs. So you immediately quit. So in that particular situation also, Prabhupada very wonderfully talks about this Yogamaya, Mahamaya principle. And he says that Duryodhana acted on the level of Mahamaya, but Vidura took it as a Yogamaya and took that as a great fortune to go and associate with the devotees of the Lord and with various, visit various holy places in the, Bharatavarsha. So that is how we can see that when a person is in this situation, then he can see samavasthitam ishwaram. Or even we see in those days of Russia, when there was Iron Curtain, all the devotees, they were so much spreading the message of Bhagavad Gita by distributing Bhagavad Gita, and or to the extent that they were being arrested and put into the jail. Yet the devotees were simply in this situation that this is nothing but happening according to the will of the Lord, and they simply accepted whatever it was coming upon them. Also, we see the current situation which is going on within Ukraine and Russia also. The devotees over there, we see, all of you must be seeing various videos floating, that how the devotees are very grateful to whatever is happening. Many of them are getting a good place to stay in our farms and all those things. But more than that, they are not just in a mood of running away or fleeing away, but they are in a mood of wanting to always remember the Lord in the last moment of life. So that's what I saw in one of two videos, that they are saying that please pray that we can always remember Krishna, because now there is no scope of going away from that place. So what will happen, nobody knows, but they are wanting to that. So that is how they are chosen to act in a positive way. So this is how we have to see Samavasthitam Ishwaram. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, if one can see the presence of Supreme Personality of Godhead in every living thing, he does not degrade himself by a destructive mentality, and therefore gradually advances to the spiritual world. So even when this particular thing, especially we can relate this in our life, that when there is some dissension amongst devotees, especially between two devotees. So if we also try to act the way Parikshit Maharaj responded, or where Vidura has responded, then what happens is Yogamaya takes upon us, and then we are blessed by the Lord. So we can only do that when we see the presence of Super Soul within the heart of others, and Krishna will not inspire others anything that is not beneficial for me. So when Krishna has inspired this, means there is something for me to learn and something for me to go ahead. So this is a benefit of Samavasthitam Ishwaram. Yes. Then the next verse talks about Prakrutyaiva cha karmani
Prakrityaiva cha karmani
kriyamanani sarvashah
kriyamanani sarvashah
yah pashyati tatatmanam
yah pashyati tatatmanam
akartaram sapashyati.
akartaram sapashyati.
Translation.
One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you. So here you see Prakrutyaiva cha karmani, the kriyamanani sarvashah, that all the activities are being carried out by Prakruti. Ya pashyati tathatmanam akartaram sapashyati. He understands that I am not the doer. So there is a similar verse where it says that Prakrute kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. So there it is mentioned that a vimudatma, a person who thinks ahankar, due to falsehood who thinks himself to be the doer, but actually everything is carried out by Prakriti. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah. So based on the modes of material nature, Prakriti is carrying out everything, but a foolish person who is puffed up with the false ego thinks himself to be the doer. On the other hand, this verse is talking about the positivity, that the person who has self-realized, who has come to this platform of understanding the difference between matter and the spirit, and who is able to see Paramatma Samavasthitam, Ishwaram Samavasthitam. He is able to see the presence of the Supreme Lord within the hearts of all living entities. Such a person clearly understands that Prakrutyaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashah. All activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature. So this knowledge will help us to be stable in the upheavals of this world. So there are so many dualities in the world, so many changes in the seasons. Nowadays we are seeing that suddenly in any time anything happens. Suddenly there is rain, suddenly there is wind blowing, suddenly there is a lot of hot sun. Anything happens at any time. But this kind of knowledge will make us understand that, or it will not affect us too much when we understand that actually everything is happening by the more Prakruti, so like that. So this is the Jnana Chakshu, this is how the scriptures helps us to see things around us, see the world around us, and not simply get caught up in the superficialities. Next verse. Yada bhuta prithak bhavam
यथा भूतपृथग्भावम्
ekastham anupashyati
एकस्थम् अनुपश्यति
tata eva cha vistaram
तत एव च विस्तारम्
brahma sampadyate tada.
ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा.
Translation. Translation.
When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception.
So again, the same thing, it is mentioned here, how one gets to this vision, and what is the result of that, getting that vision. So there is nothing much here. It's also same thing repeated in a different way, that one should learn to see beyond the diversities of this world, or not get captivated by this prathak bhavam, dualities. A sensible man ceases to see these different identities, which is caused due to different material bodies. So then he comes to the spiritual level. Brahman conception, Brahma sampadyate tada. Next verse. Anaditva nirgunatva
Anaditva nirgunatva
paramatmayam avyaya
paramayam avyayah
sharirasthopi kaunteya
sharirasthopi kaunteya
na karoti na lipyate.
na karoti na lipyate.
Translation.
Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled.
So this is very, very another wonderful verse, where it is mentioned that finally, when he is gone beyond the dualities, then he understands that actually the living entity or the soul is anaditvan, that he is imperishable, nirgunatva, is beyond the modes, and avyaya. So no, sorry, avyaya is imperishable and anaditvan is eternal. So he is eternal, he is beyond the modes, and he is imperishable. Sharirastho, and he is situated within the body. Na karoti, na lipyate, and he does not do anything, and he does not get entangled. So this understanding is acquired by the person who comes to this level. So we saw in the 27th verse that it talks about how everything is nothing but the combination of matter and spirit. And then we saw that how by understanding this, one comes to this vision, equal vision, and because of that equal vision, one sees the super soul within everyone's heart. And then we saw in the 30th verse that the soul is the doer, body is not the doer. And Prakriti is Prakriti is doing everything, and only the soul who is realized understands this, that Prakriti is doing everything. And then in the 31st verse we saw the oneness of the spirit beyond diversities of the forms, and that makes one reach to the Brahma sampadyate, on the level of Brahman conception. And in this verse we see that the soul is actually transcendental beyond the modes. So then the question may arise, how does it get entangled if he is eternal, if he is beyond the modes, if he is imperishable? So then how does he get entangled? So the seed of this is given here, na karoti, na lipyate. So in next two verses, Krishna will talk about these two words, na karoti and na lipyate. So let's go to verse number 33. Yatha sarvagatam sukshmyat
Yatha sarvagatam sukshmyad
akasham nopalipyate
akasham nopalipyate
sarvatravasthito dehe
sarvatravastito dehe
tathatmanopalipyate.
tathatmanopalipyate.
Translation.
This
The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Hare Krishna.
Here, Krishna is giving the example of air. Actually, Akash, Yata Sarvagatam Saukshmyat Akasham Nopalipyate. Akash is translated as sky, but it is something more than that. So the Akash, or Srila Prabhupada says the air. So the Akash, due to being its subtle nature, does not mix with anything. It is everywhere. Even when we are now sitting in our own rooms, Akash is there, but it is not mixed with anything. So similarly, the soul in the Brahman vision, he does not get mixed with the body, though he is inside the body. Another example is given of the coconut. When the coconut shell, when the coconut is fully ripened, then it completely separates itself from the shell within. And when you move it, then you get the sound, so like that. So that is the one who is completely not caught up. So na lipyate, the word na lipyate has been explained in this verse 13.33. And then na karoti, Krishna will explain in the next verse with another example. Yatha prakashatya ekaha
यथा प्रकाशत्येकः
Kritsnam lokam imam ravihi
कृत्स्नं लोकम् इमं रविः
Kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam
क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं
prakashayati bharata.
प्रकाशयति भारत.
Translation.
Hare Krishna. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all the universe, so does the light, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminates the entire body by consciousness.
So then the question was, sky does not mix. So similarly, living entity does not mix, was what explained in the previous word. But then how does there are changes in the matter? Because we also know that there cannot be any change in the matter without the presence of spirit. So if the soul and matter are entirely disconnected like the sky, then how all these changes are occurring? So the answer is, it is only through the agency of super soul. Super soul is the connecting factor. So that is the answer through the Vedic paradigm. And now how the soul affects, or how the soul is affecting the body, is explained to the example of the sun. Just like sun alone illuminates all the universe, so the living entity situated in the body pervades the entire body through his consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport. We can read this, or just to save the time, I'll read it because we have already crossed the time. Here in Bhagavad Gita, the example of sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit, soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Therefore, somewhere down in the purport, consciousness is not a product of the combination of matter. It is a symptom of living entity. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining this, that how the soul is pervading through the consciousness. And then Prabhupada also mentions in the purport that that is the proof of existence of soul, presence of consciousness. Yes, finally we come to the last verse of this section and this chapter. Kshetra kshetrajnayor evam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye viduryanti te param. Translation, please, quickly.
Those who see with eyes acknowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature attain to the supreme goal.
Te param, yanti te param. Ye vidur, those who know. What those who know? What is that they know? So now here Krishna has put all the 6 topics which Arjuna had asked in one verse. So here kshetra kshetrajnayor, antaram jnana, the word jnana has come, jnana and jnaya, and bhuta prakriti, then simultaneously the word purusha is there within that. So kshetra kshetrajnayor, jnana, jnaya and prakriti purusha. So one who knows all these things properly, yanti te param, then he can attain to the supreme goal. But how he can attain? With jnana chakshu. With the jnana chakshu, he understands the difference between the kshetra and kshetrajna, and that is how then he gets liberated. So Srila Prabhupada says, the purport of this 13th chapter in the first line only says that the one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the super soul. And what is the way to know this difference? We discussed Krishna giving 3 various ways, but then Prabhupada focuses on the 4th way which Krishna taught, Shruti Parayana. The devotional service is the best way to know this knowledge. And in there culminates the discussion about these 6 topics. And in the next chapter, Krishna will talk about the modes, just like we discussed in 13.22, Prakriti Jan Gunan. Purusha Prakristoi Bhunte Prakriti Jan Gunan. Karanam Guna Sangosya. So how does all that happen will be explained in the next chapter. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So is there any one question we can take?
This is a very important verses, and I see a lot of things like from a practical standpoint, it can be also applied. So my request is if you can cover some time next, like in the next section, in the next session, on how do we apply some of these verses that are coming in our day-to-day life, in our personal experiences with our family members, with our office, or say with our professional life, and so how do we really apply that? Because I see that by rightfully applying some of these things, it can really benefit us.
Yes, that is certainly true. And that is why all this discussion is given here in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, and thereby Prabhupada has given wonderful purports. So as far as practical application is concerned, wherever it was possible, I already spoke about that in this section, or not just in this session, past 3 sessions also. But yes, if required, once all other things are covered up, then we may again go back and just have a review. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah, one more thing I wanted to ask just before we leave. This Friday is Gaur Purnima, so we may not be able to have class on Friday. So which other day is better if that is not there?
I'll just check with Lilananda Prabhuji and come back to you, Prabhu.
Yeah, I will be comfortable tomorrow and day after tomorrow. Like Wednesday is already there.
Right.
So instead of Friday, I'll be comfortable tomorrow, Tuesday, because Thursday I'll be busy with again festival preparations, and Friday is festival,
Okay.
and then comes again Saturday.
Okay.
So
Some of us might already have Wednesday some other classes, Prabhu, with preaching classes. So,
Wednesday is already our Bhakti Shastri class fixed, no?
no, not Wednesday, like Tuesday and Thursdays.
Tuesday. Okay.
So let me just
Okay,
check
then
with
maybe,
and we'll
yeah.
either
Otherwise, is it okay if we cover number of hours more in our further
probably
series?
that's what we'll end up doing, Prabhu. Probably from next week we can increase some hours and then close.
Okay, fine. Then we'll do that.
Okay. Okay.
Let's keep Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then
Yeah.
if we will extend the hours.
Agree, bro.
Oh, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So Wednesday we will meet, and Friday there will be no class.
Yes, bro.
Okay.
Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.